And now joining us live is Ngozi herself. Hey, my sister, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you. And you?
Good. Well, you look great, by the way.
Thank you. Thank you for having me today. I appreciate it.
So good. Just a quick intro to you. I have your resume right here. It's a very long resume. It's very difficult to read the resume for our viewers. Just to know that we are getting to the election time, and the elections are hurrying up right here in the state of Minnesota, not just for the presidential, not the Senate, not the Congress, but it's also happening within the judicial system, and that's where you come into play. So our sister Ngozi Akubuike is running to be the Ramsey County District Judge. I think she's an expert in that. So if you don't mind, give me a quick minute to go through her resume, and then I'll get to introduce her to our viewers. So Ngozi Akubuike attended law school in Nigeria and obtained a law degree, and she graduated with honors. She practiced law and later joined the bank sector prior to coming to the United States, attended William Mitchell Law School, where she also obtained a Juris degree. Okay, interesting year. She was on the Dean's List and received an award from the Minnesota Black Lawyers Association, as well as writing award from the late Justice Donald D. Lay and 8th Circuit Appeals Senior Justice. She also obtained a master's in public administration from Hamley Institute of Public Affairs, where she received a writing award with other students. During law school, Ngozi had a judicial externship and with Judge Morrow and Judge Edward Wilson, and served as an intern at State of Minnesota, Southern Minnesota Regional Legal Service and Scotty County offices. The resume is long and long and long and long, and I cannot really finish that. Upon graduation, Ngozi served as a prosecutor, handling civil commitments, child support, and criminal appeal cases in advising the county. She's also a trained law enforcement officer. So the resume is long. I can't read it to finish, but most importantly for me is that, just so you know, myself and the African immigrant community in the U.S. is so proud of you. You are a granddaughter of our land. So as we begin the show, just know you're the pride of Africa. So let's begin with you. Did I introduce you well, or what did I miss?
Thank you. You did well. I really appreciate the opportunity to share more about myself. Thank you for taking the time to organize this, and I want to thank those who are participating as well for being part of it.
Okay, so good. So let's talk about the position you're running for. You are a lawyer by profession. The resume is very impressive. Obviously, very proud of you. And like I said in our private conversation, this is more than what you're running. It's a statement to most of our brothers and sisters who are running for political offices. And I think going forward, we should have more of this on the show. Probably the first question somebody might ask you: why are you running for this position?
I am running because of my experience in serving the state of Minnesota, serving people with disability and people who are unable to afford legal fees and adequate representation. And we know that it is a well-known fact that our justice system is regretfully flawed with disparity and unequal access to justice with respect to certain demographics based on their racial, ethnic, and socio-economic status. And so, as an immigrant woman of color, both my personal experience, which includes, I'll tell you a little bit about myself. I came in here as a young attorney, and 3 months into my arrival, I became homeless with a barely 2-week-old baby. It was a difficult time in my life, but I learned that process taught me some lesson. I learned that it's okay for someone to ask for help. I learned most of the time as Africans, we are very proud and we don't want to ask for help. But I learned it's okay to ask for help, and I learned that adversity does not define who someone is. I also learned that at times the power to create a positive story lies in one's hands, and with hard work and determination that one can achieve one's goal. And so that motivated me, and I looked at the baby and I said, homelessness will not be our final destination. It will not be our bus stop. And so I had to go back to law school to equip myself with the legal knowledge in order to practice in the state of Minnesota, because that's the requirement. And so with my personal experience and experience working with people who are able to afford that I see that gave me a unique perspective with respect to issues of lack of access to justice and disparities that exist, and has given that they have given me the worldview that have prepared me to be a judge. So I looked at it, I looked at the situation, and I said, it is my responsibility to step up. You know, looking at the county that we are in, Ramsey County that I am in, there is an obvious lack of diversity when it comes to gender and race. And so I looked at it as a responsibility on my part. And I said, I just can't sit and do nothing. And so I decided to come into this race. And I believe that my elevation to the bench will bridge the gap that currently exists and in Ramsey County with respect to race and gender. As well as the disparities that exist in other respects. When I talk about disparities, I'm not only talking about race and gender, I'm talking about the pool of attorneys that are on the bench. Historically, most of the time, the people that you see on the bench are people who have long career as prosecutors and long careers in big law firm. You don't see people who have the perspective that I have coming to the bench. And so I see that gap, and I take it as a responsibility to come forward and run for this position, because I know I will be an added value to Ramsey County bench.
So, Ngozi, you know, from a human perspective, I was reading your story and having a conversation with you, and I thank you for alluding to that. I had a question for you later in the show, but thank you for mentioning that. The fact that you came here from Nigeria, right, and went through the painful experiences that most immigrants go through. As a mom, you became homeless, you are lonely, but you are saying, no, this cannot define who I am. I think that's the African story. That's the immigrant story. And then based on that human experience, it's what informs you in your performance as a judge and as a respected lawyer as you are. So the centerpiece of your campaign, you are saying you're giving it a humane perspective. Is that correct understanding? Or maybe for our viewers, particularly those in Ramsey County, can you explain what that really means?
The human perspective, I'm offering a human perspective to the delivery of justice. And that means bringing humanity to justice. I believe that when it comes to justice, that we should be humane. Justice should be humane because we are dealing with human beings. It's not just an offense and punishment. It's the human being that we are dealing with. And when we are humane, compassionate, it doesn't stop us from dispensing justice fairly. I believe that being humane and being compassionate and dispensing justice based on the law and the fact can coexist on the same level. And so that's what I'm offering to people, looking at the individual, the totality of the circumstances and the individual involved before getting dispensing justice.
Okay, very good. So, you know, that sounds very good. You know, from a humane perspective, that sounds good. But you're also running for what you might call a political office, right? It's political. That's why you're campaigning. There are those ones who will say, look, Ngozi, thank you so much for talking that eloquently. But justice really is being delivered. So far in the history of this nation and the state, justice has always been delivered, but you're saying, no, it's not, particularly, especially with the aftermath of, I think if I can have the screen, both screens there, so that we focus on that. So the two screens. So there are those ones who might say, okay, it's a political process, but the justice has always been delivered. There are those ones who will argue from a political standpoint. But you are saying, no, justice has not always been fair to everybody. And particularly after the George Floyd situation, there are those ones particularly might say, no, justice has never been for us. It means for the other side. So how will you deliver that justice given the historical facts?
I'm sure, I'm glad that you brought up the issue of George Floyd. And one thing we need to know is that George Floyd did not just happen the day he died. It's been happening. The only thing is that this one was captured live. I mean, it shocked every reasonable conscience, it is known fact that not everyone has equal access to justice in this country. Most of the time, justice is bought with money, and not necessarily that people are being bribed, but because people are unable to afford the legal fees. But I'll give you an example. I have a young man that the mom passed. By that time, he had just graduated from college. Didn't have any job. And he wanted to do probate for the mom. But they were quoting, exorbitant fees for him, attorney fees. He couldn't afford any one of them. So for this young man, that's an unequal access to justice. We have a system where there are we have legal aids, yes, we have the Volunteer Lawyers Association, yes, but it's not all cases that they handle. It's not in all cases that the law provides for free legal assistance. Even the legal aid that we have is not all cases that they can handle. And so we have some other group of people who, though they may be a little bit above the poverty line, but they are still unable to have access to legal services. We went to court on behalf of this young man. However, the judge refused to waive the fees, the filing fees for this young man. I can bet you that the judge never had that of any chance, because he couldn't fathom how someone is unable to afford filing fee. If the judge had been in my position, I've been in a position where they didn't have any food to eat, didn't know where the next meal will come, didn't have a shelter, you would have known that it's possible for someone not to afford the filing fee. You would have known that young man, it's possible for him not to afford filing fee. And that's where I come in. I come in because I have come from both perspectives. I have been before I came in here, I was in a position where I could afford and give others. I came in here and went through that experience. There's something adversity does to someone. It makes someone to be compassionate. It can break someone. It can also make someone to be compassionate. It made me compassionate. And that's what I bring, the unique experience that I bring, both the knowledge and my personal experience. I have been, if it's someone who has had enough to eat and more than enough to eat, I have been there. If you have been in a position where you can't afford your next meal, I have been there. And so I bring that worldview perspective, what I would say a total perspective to the bench.
So Ngozi, so some obviously the people of county of Ramsey, including myself, I mean, that's where I live, that's my area, and for sure I'll be voting for you. Be assured you have my vote. But the people will be saying, no, look, honestly, it becomes very difficult for a judge. You're going to make a ruling which potentially could be sending a young man, regardless of the socioeconomic status, to jail probably for a very long time. Maybe the question, before we move to another one, how do you remove your emotions, right? Or how will you remove your emotions to make sure that you execute justice for all, not just immigrants, not minorities, but all groups of people within the county?
Again, I raised two successful college graduates. I raised them single-handedly. And I did that while going to law school, as well as working. And so that experience alone is giving me courage. It makes me resilient. And it gave me the opportunity to be able to make tough decisions. You cannot raise two children, go through law school and work at the same time without having to make tough decisions. And so I am prepared, both emotionally, to handle this case. I'm in a better position because my life experience did not break me, rather it made me better. And so I am more prepared to be in this position. And I am able to handle any position. And also, I will tell you something, that in all the positions I have held, I have been more like a pioneer. I have been the first person of color at the state level in almost in all the areas I have been. So courage is inbuilt in me. And so I am prepared for this. When I tell you I'm prepared.
No, I trust. I'm so proud of you, quite frankly, to be honest. And most people texting here, they're saying how much they're so proud of you. Or the resume is way too long. I couldn't finish reading that, and I encourage people to go to your website so that they can see more of who you are. So here's another question before we talk about community engagement, because we really want to focus on the community as well before we finish the show. A major issue within the justice system in the United States, including Ramsey, is the racial injustice or racial disparities within the criminal justice system. Quite frankly, in the United States, it's an open secret that a lot of black men, especially, and people of color generally, do end up in jail for crimes that are not. You are a person of color, right? There is an emotional part of it. How will you make sure that you transform the justice system, given your position, to make sure that all residents of Ramsey, black, white, green, whatever it is, that they really feel that there's justice being executed? How will you do that?
Yeah, it's true. And most of the time when people come to Lady Justice, they walk away feeling that they didn't get a fair shake at the system. And some of them maybe because they were not able to get adequate representation. And that's one of the things I plan on doing, and that's why I believe that getting on the bench will provide a powerful platform in order to effect the change. Because at times it's difficult to just effect change from the outside. And so when it comes to racial disparity, I was in another discussion and somebody said, oh, that we are making progress. And I said, we have been talking about this racial disparity even before I was born. Now is the time to make the change. You know, how do we make the change? There is disparity on the bench. There is no black woman on the bench. Let's elect. This is an opportunity. If we are saying we do not like what is going on, this is an opportunity. And I believe that in making the change, we need to engage everyone, every party, the people involved, the community, have an honest conversation about race. More often than not, we shy away from discussing race issue, or at times we just gloss over it. Let's have an honest conversation with everyone. It will be a conversation, communication, and collaboration with every sector involved in making that change. And I believe I am in the position to be that person to initiate that change and discussion.
So, Ngozi, thank you. Thanks. That's a very good way to put it, by the way. You look great. I think you really should be aiming at being the Chief Justice of the state of Minnesota. My assistant, I'm not being biased, but let's say facts as are. You are very eloquent, you are very knowledgeable, you have the experience, you have the passion. I honestly, I don't see, if I had the power, I don't see why you don't become the Chief Justice of the state or the Attorney General.
I'm hoping that people can see that I have a passion about making sure that people understand and appreciate the law, and they have this opportunity to vote for me. This is an opportunity we have to make a change. We have been crying about things not going well, and now we have the opportunity, and the voting is the power that we have to effect the change. And so let's go and vote Ngozi as judge.
Yes. So as you talked about the people, Ngozi, obviously somebody from the skies is looking up to you, and obviously with this guidance you'll be there. Let's talk about community engagement. Sometimes people want to know, who is the candidate? You just didn't appear from law school to the different libraries or the corridors of any court laws in the system, you actually have been an active member of the community. And I can't read enough how many of the community events you've been there. For example, you've been with the National Merit Donor Program. These are awards that you've received. The Domestic Abuse Service Center, the New Life Family Services, Minnesota Bar Association, the Salvation Army, and many more to say. Do you mind speaking to the people of Ramsey of what you've been involved in the community?
I must tell you that some people have questioned my volunteer activity in the sense that criticized it. But somebody making such criticism doesn't understand where I am coming from. I am coming from parents who I have a heritage of helping people. I come from parents who were public servants in the real sense of the African way of saying public servants. And so when I got in here, that was already imbued in me, and I came in here and received help. I felt there is another responsibility on my part to give back to the community that helped me get to this place.
Okay. So
did you get off? Okay.
Yeah. Go ahead, Ngozi.
I came from a heritage of parents who were public servants in the African way of public servants. And on getting here, I received help. Some of them I didn't ask for, but I received help. I received free clothing from an organization, New Life, and even though my baby I was still nursing, I looked at this group of individuals that gave me clothing for my baby, and I said, what can I do? You know, I wasn't working then, but I was still nursing the baby. I said, what can I do to help? And they trained me in helping people who were in crisis, people who were suicidal. And so that from there, that's where I started off my volunteer activity and continued on. You know, there is a satisfaction that comes when you have helped a life either stabilize or move ahead. And so that satisfaction has always motivated me. You know, I'm doing that. I provide pro bono legal services for people who are unable to provide services, pay for the legal services. I conduct domestic abuse workshops, legal awareness workshop. I conduct them on giving legal updates to the community. I provide toys, food shelf, and clothing to those who are unable. In fact, even during this COVID, most of the time you find me in downtown St. Paul distributing clothing, distributing food to the homeless. And when winter comes, you will see me there sharing warm food and clothing, jackets to the homeless. So during Christmas, I participate in the toy distribution to people who are unable, because I do all this because I have been there. I have been in a position where I didn't have money to buy toys for my children. I have been in a position where I didn't have money to buy food. I had to call somebody pregnant. I had to ask somebody, please, can you give me food? And so people helped me, and I feel it's my responsibility also. And that's why you see me going above and beyond to make sure that I affect another person's life positively.
Okay, Ngozi, you've done a lot for the community, and you and I know well, you cannot do this alone. You need support, and I think some of the comments you're seeing there's a massive support for you from the county of Ramsey and beyond. People have to be involved. So what do you say to the people who need to be part of your campaign? You're talking about people in Ramsey and beyond. What do you say to them? Or what kind of help do you need?
We need money. We need money to run a campaign. It costs money to make the flyers. It costs money to do adverts. It costs money to do all sorts, to go on social media, to do the adverts on social media. We need money. We cannot overemphasize it. If you go to our website, you'll see the donate button so that we can, if we are really committed to making this change happen, please donate to the campaign. We need volunteers to make calls. Ramsey County is very huge. I think my office is the highest office any African is running. And I really I thank people who have in the past contributed. We need more people to get involved because we need to make this thing happen. Not only, when there's something I have there that says, she runs, we win. And when I say we win, I mean everybody of any race, any ethnicity, of any socio-economic background. We need this change to happen. It's long overdue. We have waited too long for this change. We need volunteers to send text messages. We need people to use their social media. Send the information out. Let people know. Everyone that lives in Ramsey County, tell them that Ngozi Akubuike is running. In fact, Ngozi is the only Ngozi you will see on the ballot that day. So just don't turn in your ballot until you see Ngozi. Turn it over, flip it over to the other side, and you see Ngozi and vote. It is critical. The time has never been more critical for us to be engaged in this race.
My sister, can I ask you a question on a lighter note? Watching you, by the I love the sense of humor, the sense of energy that you bring to the discussions, even private conversations. Somebody could ask you, what is your most delicious Nigerian food? You would say?
Oh, by the way, I'm a very good cook. So it's difficult for me to say which one is my most delicious. I cook all sorts. But I cook egusi very well. I like vegetable soup, but I cook all of them well. So if you need a sample, just let me know. I'll bring a pot of soup for you.
I'll let you know. So before we finish, before I let you make a closing statement, particularly whenever we have a female on the show, we always have to make sure that we respect the young girls who really have big dreams to be where you are. What do you say to young girls watching you right now?
I'll say to them, you can do it. I have a group of young girls that I mentor, and I want to let them know that you can do it. It's possible. Let nothing stop you. Let not even adversity, no hardship, whatever you have, whatever it is that you are going through, let it not stop you. You know what I tell young people? I ask them, what do you want to be in the future? Write it down. Put it on the wall. And that's what I told my children. Put it on the wall. Look at it. As you wake up, you look at it and you tell yourself, that is where I am going. Set a goal for yourself and watch yourself soar and reach that goal. It doesn't mean that there will not be any obstacle. It doesn't mean that there will not be hiccups. It doesn't mean that you cannot make a mistake. I tell people, you make a mistake, you rise. You rise. Just dust yourself and rise up and continue walking, keeping your eyes on the goal. You will finally reach the goal.
Two questions. Okay. So there is a question for you from Charlie Olipenise, if I pronounce that right. The question, when was the last time we have people of color on the bench in Ramsey? That's a question from Charlie for you, Ngozi.
Yeah, we have some people of color on the bench currently, but we do not have a black woman on the bench. And in my discussion in another candidate forum that we had, the question I posed is it that there is no qualified black woman to be on the bench? And the process is flawed. The process of appointment is so flawed that the first thing, what they will ask you is that, do you know anyone? When the people who are members of the commission, they will ask, Then when they receive their applications from people, they will ask amongst themselves whether any one of them knew the candidate. And so if none of them knows any candidate, that means that person is out. It's not based on experience. It's based on who you know. It got to the point that at one point when I requested for an application, it took the intervention of another person in authority to just give me the application. And that's just to get an application and not even to be appointed, you know. And so the process is flawed. And that's why we see that they're not that's why we see that much disparity on the bench.
So there's another question for you from Florence Njohi. She's asking, I think you can read that. What will you do as a judge to make changes on common words that label others that clearly depict inequality and disparities? For example, people of color, minorities, etc. Yeah, that has some interesting meaning. What do you do?
Yeah, regarding the terminology, those terminologies, they have been there, but it's our own responsibility to say, I don't want to be addressed that way, you know. And I say this because I look back at my experience in working with people with disabilities. There were times certain words were used to describe people with disabilities. And we had a discussion. I was the ADA coordinator, and we had a discussion with the disability community. And we came to the conclusion that these words, we should not be using it. And that was when we made the change that today you see them saying people with disability. I was part of that process. And so it is something on our own part to bring to Ramsey County. I said, no, we don't want to be addressed this way. And then have an honest discussion. Most of the time we want the outsiders to do the things for us. But at times we have to bring it to the attention that this is not the way I want to be addressed.
Okay. Very good. I think that does it for now. I think that's a good question, and one of the best ways to respond before I let you make your closing statement in Ngozi. I think like I said in the intro there, your candidate means a lot. It's not just about you getting to the bench, but it's a big statement to everybody, particularly an immigrant who's come to this country, that our dreams are valid. We've been lucky enough to have one in the White House. We have one in Congress. We have one or two at the state capitol, and I think we can together pull these things together and have our people somewhere in the decision-making table, and that's the only way our voices can be heard. That's the only way such kind of language can change. If we don't do so, unfortunately, this will continue. So I'm a resident of Ramsey, and I want to take this opportunity to say to all friends in Ramsey County, that wonderful sister of ours, go vote for her, right? Let's carry the torch. And if you're an immigrant, even if you're across the state, other counties, across the nation, there is nothing wrong. Chip in your $1, $2, whichever way you can help her, please do so, because she is making history. After Ngozi, we're going to have many more young women of color to come into the competition and probably be in a position where they can make decisions that will favor not just us, but also would be good for the next generation. So I think with that, Ngozi, I'm going to have you speak lastly, make your closing statement to our viewers.
We are in a critical time in our country. In a critical time, and we have an opportunity to make a change. If we look at the people who are on the bench, historically, they are from the attorneys pulled from those who have long-term careers as prosecutors and those who are from the big law firms. You know, the result is that they carry on what they were doing. People like you and I are somehow we are not counted in. There are other attorneys also qualified, people who work with individuals with disability, people who have vast knowledge, and I am one of them. I bring in my personal experience, my legal experience, life experience, my community experience. I bring all of those, and they are helpful for what we need in Ramsey County. I am hoping that by talking today, I've been able to let you know how passionate I am in helping people understand and appreciate the law. I am hoping to move beyond advocating and representing people who are unable to speak for themselves to being on the bench in order to bridge the gap that currently exists on the bench. I am that judge. I can be that judge that Ramsey County needs right now. I can be a judge that will bridge the diversity gap that currently exists in Ramsey County. I am asking for your vote. I'm asking for your vote because now, more than ever before, we need judges who are compassionate. We need judges who are courageous. We need judges who can dispense justice without any special interest. And I'm here to tell you that I will be that judge. And I'm asking for your vote. When you receive your ballot, please vote for me. Let's make that change that we have been crying about. Now is our time of change. It doesn't matter what race you are, your ethnic background, or your socio-economic background. We have all cried for change. Now is the time to make the change. Please vote for me. Thank you.
I can't add more. That is very eloquently said, and I think our viewers get the point. Vote Ngozi for that position. I think, Ngozi, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you, and I just want to assure you that you are a friend to the station. So KDRTV is your friend. Feel free to come back on. You want to relay a message, feel free to do so. And by the way, we're also extending the same invitation to all candidates who are running for any political office, particularly those immigrants, particularly. Please come to the show. We'll be very happy to work with you so that you pass your message to all demographics. That's important. I think that's why we here at KDRTV are determined to make this a show or a station for all immigrants to tell their stories. So it's not just one nation, it's not Nigeria, it's not Kenya, but all immigrants. With that said, Ngozi, you have my vote. Welcome anytime on the show. We'll be happy to have you, particularly before the election time.
Thank you. Thank you so much.